Hi everybody, this is JB, Capto coach. Welcome to another episode of a nice, interesting discussion between Iain Highfield and myself. I'm a Capto expert. I'm a putting and short game specialist. I'm also a director of e-learning for the online certification courses for Capto. And welcome to this next episode.
Hey everyone, I'm Iain Highfield. I'm owner of Game Like Training, where I train golfers and golf coaches to think differently and practice differently. I also work as a performance coach for the David Ledbetter Golf Academies, and I'm the Capto US distributor. And I know JB through having some discussions with him about Capto and the most effective ways of using it. And we were ultimately like, why are me and you just having these conversations? Let's record them, put some content out there so people can not only have this amazing device that can allow you to measure putting strokes instead of guessing, but it can also give you the chance to use it in what we would call context, be a more effective coach, make longer lasting, more effective changes to putting strokes. So I know JB does a drill with students, or even a challenge with students, where he actually asks them to make mistakes. As humans, we can be a little bit anti-mistake. We see them as a bad thing. But in this case, JB and then myself, I actually use a learning tool that includes making mistakes. So JB, if you fire away first, just explain your way of getting a student on the right path through actually making mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned a really important thing there is that as humans have a tendency that we want to do things without making mistakes, whereas making the mistakes are very meaningful for learning. There's even a saying that I use sometimes that says, "I learned a lot from my mistakes in life, so I hope I will make a couple of more." Because you want to keep progressing, and not only as a player but as a human as well, right? And you got to make mistakes. You got to put yourself out there. And in the context of golf, I use a saying that is, "Do it wrong to get it right." It's really simple. It's really to the point. But I'm a firm believer in making deliberate mistakes to develop your feel on where you wanna be. So we were talking. We've had a lot of discussions together, a lot of interesting discussions. You said as well, feel is never real, because it might feel that you're doing something, but the question is, are you really doing that? So coming back to the golf and coming back to putting, because that's what we're talking about, and coming back to working with the Capto, there's a couple of things I do. Let's say somebody has a stroke path that is, I have the ball here, right-handed player, and he cuts across the ball from out to in. And let's put a number to that. Let's say 3 degrees. And that is something that makes it hard for the player to control the club face, because in all honesty, the putter path doesn't have a lot of influence on where the ball launches. The face has basically 90% responsibility for where the ball launches in putting. So you might say that, okay, well, path doesn't matter because it's all about face. Yeah, that is true if we're talking about the launch of the ball. But in the mechanics of the player, if you have a face that's cutting across the ball or pushing across the ball into out, it's going to make it more difficult to control the face. And that will eventually result in poor face control, and that face control results is 90% responsible for the starting line. So yeah, path is important in that respect. So 3 degrees, out to in, and I will probably ask them, okay, I want to see you 3 degrees into out on this next one. I just want to see you make the opposite mistake. And then sometimes players look at me, but tell me how I should do it correctly, because I want to start doing it correctly right from the beginning. And that is something that I think is basically impossible, and you shouldn't be doing that. So I really want them to play a couple of strokes Doesn't matter, even if it's 10 degrees in to out, as long as it's not out to in. It has to be the opposite mistake. And working from that, as soon as they start feeling, okay, what is in to out, what is out to in, I start putting numbers to that. Or actually, I ask them to start putting a feeling to that. Okay, just play a putt. I will take away the capto. In the beginning, I will give them the feedback. Okay, was this out to in or was this in to out? We talked about feedback before. So in this kind of block practice, I give them instant feedback all the time. And at a certain moment when they start producing those numbers, I take away the iPad. I ask them to play a deliberate putt out to in or in to out. I will mix it all up. And they will have to give me an estimate of, okay, this one was a little bit out to in or a lot out to in or into out or whatever. So they have to quantify their feeling as well. So their feeling is, was it into out or out to in? And was it a lot or was it just a little bit? So, and having those data, having the data to back that up and showing the player and knowing what's happening, then you can really create that feel using a device like Capto producing the data. And that's what I think is doing it wrong. Do it wrong to get it right.
Yeah, I always, I ask my students, I find a lot of times tempo and tension and balance are areas for development, especially with the junior golfers that I coach, the high school golfers. I'll always look at tempo, especially like grip pressure with the putter, tempo, stroke. I think that they're so valuable and often overlooked. And I'll ask them to make what the same as you're doing, but I phrase it a little differently. I say positive error. So if you're too tense right now, hit me a bad stroke because you're too loose. Hit me a bad putt, sorry, because you're too loose. And often, and this is leading up to a question for you. Often they'll try and do it and they'll be like, oh, that felt nice. So when you ask them to make the mistake on the opposite side of the spectrum, I'm going to guess it kind of leads to more zeroing out of the path or...
I even have players, they nail it on the first putt and then it takes them 10 putts to come back to that feeling because they just don't believe it. They're like, okay, they oftentimes, when they do the opposite mistake, they try the opposite mistake, their first reaction is, wow, that felt really bad. And then they look at the number and the number is like, oh, that's a pretty good number.
Here's the key, right? That's the buy-in. Because without Capto, they're not going to believe it. No, I can never put like that. Even if you show them on 2D on film, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but when you show them data, that's the power of measuring rather than guessing. So while Capto is a measurement tool, while Capto is a tool that allows you to train in context, you can take it on the golf course, get super accurate data. Man, it creates buy-in. That's what I've found.
Yeah.
And
people, I mean, it's hard to argue with the numbers, right? Then they're, and it helps with the changes as well, right? I mean, you give a very good example working on tempo, working on grip pressure. And if you don't have something to back it up to prove it, and they loosen the hands and they're like, oh, wow, that felt good. Hey, that produced a good number. Their mind opens up. They're far more susceptible of making that change. We all know how hard it is to make a grip change.